Bram Stoker's Dracula has been a cultural phenomenon since its publication in 1897, and countless adaptations have been made for film and television. Among these, the 1931 film Dracula stands out as a landmark of the horror genre. Directed by Tod Browning and starring Bela Lugosi in the title role, the movie introduced audiences to the iconic image of the suave but sinister vampire from Transylvania. Despite its age, Dracula remains a fascinating and influential work of cinema, as well as a source of debate and discussion among fans. According to the legend surrounding the film industry, it is said that Bela Lugosi, the famed actor, was selected by Universal Pictures to star in the classic horror film Dracula from 1931, despite his limited English proficiency. Prior to Lugosi's casting, Lon Chaney, the acclaimed actor in silent films such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera, was originally slated for the titular role. However, Chaney's untimely death occurred during the film's pre-production phase, leading to Lugosi's casting as Dracula. Though rumors have embellished the story, it is worth noting that Lugosi, a Hungarian immigrant who had already been living and working in the United States for over a decade by the time of the film's release, possessed a certain distinct quality in his line readings that hinted at a man who approached English in a roundabout way. One might surmise that Dracula's long, isolated existence in his Transylvanian castle may have given him ample time to study the language, but not many opportunities to put his knowledge into practice, leading to Lugosi's unique delivery. Undeniably, the success of Tod Browning's Dracula, as a highly influential classic of the Hollywood film industry, can be attributed in large part to Bela Lugosi's outstanding performance and Karl Freund's masterful cinematography. However, it should be noted that the title of the greatest vampire film of all time undoubtedly belongs to Murnau's silent masterpiece, Nosferatu from 1922, which stands alone as an iconic classic in this great movie series. While Murnau's work was a true pinnacle of the genre, it was self-contained and offered a definitive conclusion, in contrast to the long-lasting influence of Dracula. So powerful was the legacy of Murnau's Nosferatu that Werner Herzog, a renowned filmmaker in his own right, paid homage to the original by shooting his version of the film with Klaus Kinski in 1979 on some of the same locations used in the 1922 film. The look and feel of Browning's Dracula owes a significant debt to Murnau's Gothic visual style, which was well known to the German cameraman Freund, who had previously worked with Murnau on The Last Laugh. In fact, it was Freund's creative influence that was instrumental in crafting the stunning visual impact of the arrival at Castle Dracula, the ominous entrance to the castle's forbidding interior spaces, and such iconic Nosferatu-inspired scenes as the creeping hand emerging from a coffin and the scurrying rats in the crypt. One of the groundbreaking features of Dracula was its pioneering use of sound, which gave voice to the titular character for the first time in a cinematic adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel. Hearing Count Dracula speak lent him a greater sense of menace. Not merely an inhuman creature, but a human one whose carefully enunciated words belittled the conventions of high society. Bela Lugosi's accented English and somewhat stilted delivery only added to the terror he evoked. Beneath the makeup and costuming, Lugosi was a peculiar and deliberately theatrical figure, prone to drawing attention to himself with his stylized actions. He made his foreignness a source of strength, using his ominous, self-mocking accent to great effect in both Hollywood and New York. Following the massive success of Dracula, he frequently appeared in public adorned in formal wear, complete with a dramatic cape that suggested he was still playing the iconic role. In his later years, he became addicted to drugs, and his career was reduced to self-parody, a sad decline that was memorably portrayed in Tim Burton's 1994 film Ed Wood, which chronicled the making of Lugosi's final movie. There is a peculiarly cinematic quality to the legend of the vampire Dracula, which has been adapted into more than 30 films to date. Perhaps it is the merging of terror with an eroticism that makes it such an enduring theme on the silver screen. Although the vampire's attack is not overtly sexual in nature, it involves the most intimate of acts, the drinking of blood, which can be interpreted as a symbolic union of sorts. In a way, there is an almost primordial connection between losing one's innocence and succumbing to the undead's irresistible charm. The act of vampirism can be seen as a slow, elegant form of rape, carried out in a charming and courteous manner by a creature that entrances its victims into surrender. Over time, the story of Dracula has become a familiar tale, akin to an opera or a play, with viewers more interested in the style and production of the films rather than the story itself. Despite the various adaptations, the influence of Bela Lugosi's portrayal of Dracula in the 1931 film remained strong. With his hypnotic eyes and sleek black hair, Lugosi created a unique performance that set the tone for future depictions of the vampire, including Christopher Lee's iconic portrayal in the Hammer film series. Meanwhile, Max Schreck's earlier portrayal in Nosferatu was a more inhuman and ghostly rendition of the character, which left a different kind of impression on viewers. The narrative is a well-worn path for any cinema enthusiast. Renfield, Dwight Fry, an English real estate agent, embarks on a voyage to Transylvania to sell a London property to the Count. Despite the villagers' fear of Dracula's name, Renfield is determined to make the sale. He survives a harrowing journey in a coach with no driver, only to meet his inevitable fate. The eerie interior shots of Castle Dracula bear the unmistakable hallmarks of German expressionism. Dracula greets Renfield with sinister politeness, offering food and wine, as he makes his way towards his prey. Renfield is gradually overcome by Dracula, leading to their journey back to England on a ship carrying deadly coffins, a sequence that is undoubtedly influenced by Nosferatu. The ghostly ship drifts into port, with all passengers presumed dead except for Renfield, now stark raving mad. As Dracula unfolds, the titular vampire roams the darkened streets of London, preying on unsuspecting strangers in scenes that evoke the grisly legend of Jack the Ripper. In his quest for power and influence, he ingratiates himself into high society by infiltrating Dr. Seward's opera box. Seward happens to own Carfax Abbey, which sits next door to the sanitarium where the hapless Renfield is being held captive. Renfield, who has taken to giggling maniacally and devouring spiders for their blood, is an unfortunate victim of the vampire's bloodlust. Meanwhile, Dracula sets his sights on the doctor's daughter Mina, Helen Chandler, her fiancé John Harker, David Manners, and her friend Lucy, Frances Dade. As the vampire begins to exert his insidious influence over the trio, they are eventually joined by the vampire hunter Dr. Van Helsing, Edward Van Sloan, who is more than happy to expound at length on the intricacies of vampirism. While Van Helsing's explanations may be more than the drama strictly requires, they serve to deepen the sense of unease and terror that permeates Browning's masterpiece. The scenes set in Carfax Abbey, though intended as a climax to Dracula, fall short of the expressionist terrors that precede them. Based on the same Broadway play in which Lugosi first played the titular vampire, these scenes hew closer to the drawing room drama tradition, with a touch of comedy thrown in for good measure. Nevertheless, Browning's genius is on full display even in these scenes, as he imbues them with unsettling touches, such as the presence of bats and drifting fog that suggest Dracula's looming influence. When it comes to horror films, Tod Browning is a name that looms large. However, his collaborations with iconic actors like Lon Chaney and Bela Lugosi often overshadow his own creative vision. It was Chaney who truly brought to life Browning's silent masterpieces, The Unholy Three and West of Zanzibar, while Lugosi and Karl Freund were the driving forces behind Dracula. Nevertheless, Browning's directorial genius shines through in Freaks, from 1932, a personal passion project set in a circus sideshow that was so shocking it was banned in some places. Upon its initial release, Dracula was devoid of a proper musical score, save for a few fleeting strains of Swan Lake. However, this perceived lack of aural enhancement proved to be an opportunity for later reinterpretation. Some purists may argue that Browning's original decision to forego music in favor of spine-tingling sound effects was the right one. But in light of the myriad different interpretations of Dracula that have been created by so many different artists, Glass is merely following the tradition of offering a fresh perspective. Glass's score is particularly effective in its ability to convey not only an air of eerie creepiness, but also the insatiable urgency and primal drive that underlies Dracula's vampirism. The music deftly evokes a thirst for blood that has persisted for over 5 centuries. Does the 1931 Dracula still induce terror, or is it a mere period piece now? Cinebooks boldly declares it to be the most chilling, genuinely frightening film ever made, but I'm not so sure that holds true today. Instead, the movie seems to be more intriguing from a technical standpoint, with its stylized performances, photography, and sets. That being said, there is a specific moment in the film when Lugosi's Dracula draws near to the slumbering Lucy, and all the film's various elements coalesce into a hauntingly effective scene. We're forced to grapple with the chillingly morbid trade-off of immortality, albeit as a vampire. From our perspective, Dracula's actions are unequivocally atrocious. But he sees it as offering a gift beyond words. So, which movie adaptation of Dracula do you consider the best, and why? Additionally, which actor would you like to see play the role of Count Dracula in a future adaptation? And which living or deceased famous actor do you think would have been perfect for the role? Let us know your picks in the comments.